of parents need to just wake up and realize our kids are getting information from so many different places.
What's shaking? Welcome back to All In. I'm your host, Rick Jordan. My guest today, we're going to talk about drunk politicians because she just loves talking about this and I love talking about this. You've listened to me time and again. And Krista Hilton is a conservative single mom and entrepreneur in Portland, Oregon, and the owner of the brand Drunk Republic. You need to go check this stuff out because it's amazing on Instagram at the Krista Hilton. Krista, what's shaking?
Hi, Thanks for having me here.
I'm excited. I'm pumped up. Even beforehand we were talking and my energy level is like spiked through the roof right now because we're going to have some amazing real conversations. And I wouldn't even say that they're like political conversations. They're just real human conversations about people that happen to own or hold political offices. Right. It's not these types of convos are typically I hate when like, oh, you're right, you're left, whatever, but how about we just be human and just have real talk? OK. Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Yes.
So how are you?
I'm good. I'm great. I'm just hanging out in rainy Portland. Super fun.
That's interesting. I love it. How did you come to start the show, Drunk Politics?
I had a business and it centered around helping small business owners gain control of their lives again, like helping them with inventory and kind of finding the holes on where they were losing money. And when coronavirus hit, I just kind of had to shut down because all of my clients couldn't pay me because they had to shut their doors. So everybody had like a physical space. But in order to try to help them, I read the whole CARES Act. And then I started watching all the press conferences and I was like, what the actual F is our government actually up to? So it just kind of kicked off from there.
So after you read the entire CARES Act, which was long AF. I looked through most of it. I can't put myself up there with you where I read all of it, but I skimmed through so much of it. And there was so many things that were just kind of hidden in there too.
Yeah.
What were some of the things that stuck out with you? They were like, what the? Like
how much money we give to different foundations that feels like they don't really need it. And the amount of money that just goes to places with no accountability. And some of the studies that are done, those always get me. Like I just read, like made up data. Or there's one actually we funded. It wasn't through the CARES Act, it was something else, but it was pigeons gambling. And that was actually here in Portland. Like $500,000 went to that. Why?
Wait, you're talking like the bird?
Yeah.
Like gambling on pigeons. What's a pigeon gamble?
Mm-hmm.
You don't know?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Okay.
It's like,
we're gonna
make up this
Somebody on the team here, Google this and put it up on my screen, please, because we need to find this out and solve this mystery of pigeon gambling.
It was at Lewis and Clark College, I think maybe. It was at one of the colleges here in Oregon. Yeah, it was really bad. Rand Paul does a Festivus report every year and he puts in like the most obscene things the government spends money on. And it was actually in his report. The
pigeon gambling. That's so crazy. All right. We're going to figure out what that is, but this was in the CARES Act. Like it was dollars that were earmarked.
I don't think this was in the CARES Act, but just our out of control government spending in general. But that was that was in this year's Festivus report. So I think it was in the last 2 years that we gave money to that.
That's crazy. That's just crazy.
Yeah.
$500,000 too, you're saying. That's insane.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things that I know that are just embedded in some of these bills, like even in the $1.5 trillion bill that was just passed a little while ago, that are just sort of there and nobody really reads through, but they're things that not necessarily hold up different sides or a bill from getting passed in the House or the Senate. It's just, it's almost like personal pet projects, it seems, of some members of the House or the Senate. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're just ushered right on in. It's crazy. It's crazy. And I think a lot of it has to do with special interest and lobbyists and who's going to scratch whose back. And I mean, the amount of money we spend doing that is crazy.
No doubt. No doubt. So with some of the things that are going on right now with different overseas wars, obviously with Ukraine and all that. I mean, at the time we're recording this, they just passed some more aid, and it was interesting because this was funny because I was on your Instagram page and we're just on the heels of when President Zelensky addressed the U.S. Congress, and I think this was from that, but I'm going to play this here real quick, in a complete low tech way. This was hilarious, right? The articulate Speaker of the House. This was funny and also just WTF at the same time.
But they know that we can't go there. Putin is trying to bait the trap so that we go in, and that's could be the beginning of World War III. Putin totally irresponsible using weapons that are not allowed under the Geneva Convention. Putin who threatens use of chemical weapons, nuclear, and the rest. So they know that we can't, but it's the ask. Now, he was this morning. If we can't have a no-fly zone, let us have our own, and we need the airplanes to come in.
That was just a portion of it. What is she saying?
The actual.
What is she even saying?
I don't know. She doesn't know what she's saying half the time.
I know.
How are we allowing this? I don't understand. How do all of the people in Congress let her speak and think this lady's fine?
Yeah, I know. And did you watch the State of the Union? I watch it every year.
I did.
Yeah.
No, I did.
And it was at the beginning of it, and I'll say this out loud. It's okay. Out to the world. It's okay. The first 20 minutes of it and I completely respect the office of the president, even so, with things that are going on, let's be real, even with Ukraine, Russia, these are really, really tough decisions, because they are decisions that could affect American lives, and the weight of that on anybody, whether you agree with the current president's politics or views on anything or not, that's still just, again, it's human. Like I was saying,
100%.
The weight of those decisions is just insane. Yeah. And when he got up there and he started talking about some things, at first, the first 20 minutes of it, I was like, who is this guy? Because it was actually articulate and energetic and on point in almost things that you couldn't even argue with because they just made sense that he was saying. But then it was after about 20 minutes. I don't know if his teleprompter broke or maybe there was an injection that wore off. That
was the extent of his stamina.
I know. Yeah, exactly. But then it dropped off so fast. And that wasn't the weight of anything in that moment. And I'm curious, what is going on and how do we fix it? This is what caused you to start your podcast to begin with, was drunk politics, and is there something that you can see that's like a clear path? This is a big question, a clear path to get back to how government should work for us as the American people?
Basically, all of the people in office right now just need to go. Like, we need a new batch of people that are on the same page that actually care about getting things done for the American people. Because I think there's very few left that haven't bought into the whole political career. I mean, because I didn't really realize until I started doing this that it's a whole industry. I mean, running for office and all of the campaign managers and like all of the things that back that is a whole industry. And it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. It's not going away anytime soon unless we stop it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I hear you on that. There's different things, that have been proposed. The president has a term limit, but term limits don't necessarily exist in Congress. There's representatives that have been serving for 30 years, something like that. Same with senators. So
that shouldn't happen.
Yeah, you start to lose touch with what's actually going on. But I understand the experience factor because you've been in that role now for a while. But still, how do you inject the fresh perspectives when that's the case?
Yeah, I think there needs to be term limits. And I think that if you have never worked in the private sector, you have no business being in office because you don't really have a good, clear touch with reality. Like, there's no reason that someone should major in politics and then have a career in politics. Why? Like, you don't even know how the real world works at that point.
You're not talking about our friend Bernie Sanders, are you?
I mean, his ideas are cute. You know, they're like really cute. It's so cute that you think that you understand human nature. Like, that's cute, but like, it's never going to work.
Well, that's okay. He produces some good memes, right?
Oh God, the glove thing was like just the best.
That was the best. It totally was. There's something that I know that you talk about too, which is parents and school choice. You know, and I love talking about anything, both sides. I mean, on the show, just to hear people out, because I think that's similar to like Joe Rogan too. Is I just like to hear what people think. Yeah. So, what are your thoughts around that? Because I know that you've got some pretty good ones.
My son is almost 12, and we pulled him out of public school and put him in private. And I really think that the public school system has just absolutely lost their marbles. And throwing a fit at school board meetings has worked for some districts when there's parents that care. But like in our district here in Portland, no one attends the board meetings or shows up to watch even like on YouTube or the Zoom calls or anything, because they're still not meeting in person, or at least they weren't. But I really feel like if everybody just pulled their kids out of school and talked to each other and we're like, okay, well, if we can't afford to go to private school, then we'll create like homeschool pods and we can share the responsibility. But if we all pull out at once, like it would crash the entire public school system, because they can't survive without our money, and they get money for each child.
Yeah, they sure do. I don't know how it works in Oregon, but in the state of Illinois, which is where I'm from, which is, you know, very, it leans left. We'll just put it that way. Yeah. There's the public school system is funded by property taxes. And I don't know if that's the same in the state of Oregon. Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
Our kids are in an online private school. You know, and it's done with a lot of self-paced videos. And then there's also some live classes. They've been in it even before the coronavirus pandemic, you know, about a year and a half prior to that. It was the best decision that I think as parents that has ever been made. And it was fantastic. Now, I also recognize that that's not necessarily the case or availability for everybody, because even though it's not homeschool, it's really like online private school. And the costs associated with it can be prohibitive to some, but it's not as much as like in-person private school. And my kids are involved in theater and sports and a lot of other things. So there's never issues with socialization. That was like one of the biggest things that people start to judge on immediately. It's like, listen, they can go to Starbucks and invite their friends or go to a movie. You know, you can still see people. This is freaking 2021, 2022. Okay. Yeah. But what I didn't quite grasp until everything hit, because you're right, but still taking our kids out, we still have to pay the same amount of property tax, whether our kids are using the public school system or not. There is no credit we get back. It's just an additional expense.
Right. We don't benefit at all. But the way that it works is they don't get that money from your property taxes. Like they get money per student. So if they're like, let's say each student is worth like 15 or 20 grand a year. So that's a lot. If like everyone that's pissed off, which is a lot of people, pulls their kids out at the same time, I mean, enrollment goes down and they're hurting for money. The only reason they haven't hurt for money yet with all the kids that have come out of the school is because they were under like an emergency situation where they were using like 2018 or 19's numbers. But once they have to start using the real numbers, it'll be really interesting to see like what kind of a deficit the schools are actually in, because so many people have just said, F it. And I think that school choice is a great idea, because then you're taking that money and you're able to get like a tax credit or whatever for the cost of that public private school. I mean, that you want to put your kid in.
Yeah. So if the schools don't get the money, but you're still being billed the same amount of property tax, where does that money go?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Huh. That's so interesting. But getting that money back to, school choice, I can understand that. I've exercised my choice, because we do have a choice as parents, of course, to do what we feel is best for our kids. That's just freaking America. Hello.
Yeah. I think the illusion and the delusion that people have that like the school system is put there to teach our kids like life. No, it's not. It's there to teach them math and reading and stupid shit like that. You don't need to teach my kids values, really. That's my job.
Yep. Oh my God. Yes. You're going to get me started on this. Right on. And that's where the dinner conversations come into play. And that's, because I've even done appearances on TV on ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox around bullying. When that's, it's still a big thing in schools, but it's like parents can sometimes abdicate their responsibility to parent their kids. And this is where I actually feel bad for the public school system, because parents are not stepping up into their natural roles as parents, and then could just pass that on and expect the administration of the public schools and the teachers to fill that role for them. And that's allowing somebody else's views and ethics rather than what yours are as parents. Somebody's going to give your kids their views, their perspectives.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Do you want it to be you, or do you want it to be somebody else? That's the choice as parents. And that has nothing to do with what school system they're in either, if they're in public or private school. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, it's 2022. And I think that like a lot of parents need to just wake up and realize our kids are getting information from so many different places. And if you're not actively talking to your kids about hard stuff, they're not going to know how to decipher that effed up information if they get it from school or they get it from social media or whatever. So the more that we are open with our kids, the better off they are.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you maintain that? Because you have a 12-year-old, how do you maintain that communication with your dude? So dude, right? Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Well, we live in Portland and we lived downtown. And so he started seeing people doing drugs like on the street really early. And some people judge me for like allowing that to happen. And my dad's a drug addict.
Allowing him to see it? They were judging you for allowing him to see it?
Yeah, like being around like an environment where that like homelessness and the drugs and all of that was taking place. And my rebuttal to that is, well, he's never going to end up underneath a bridge and he's never going to stick a needle in his arm, because from an early age, we've just talked about these are people's life choices. This is why you don't have a grandpa that you see. Like, this is real life stuff, and it doesn't have to be heavy. We as parents put our own shit on our kids. So if we're coming at it with like this heavy attitude and, oh, this is a really big deal, then that's what our kids are going to get from us. But if we're like, well, this is life, these are facts, and this is how we're going to move on from it, and maybe you don't want to do that, then they handle it a lot better. And so since we've had that open line of communication his whole life, he's come to me when he would hear something in his public school. Like one time his teacher told him that Trump was holding kids at the border and taking them away from their parents. And I was like, okay, well, since you want to talk about this, let's talk about the other side, and then you can decide what you think, right? And at the end of it all, he was like, so basically no one knows what's going on. He was in like second grade or something. I was like, yes, that is what I'm saying. Very good.
Kids are freaking intelligent, aren't they?
Yeah, they really are. We don't give them enough credit.
Right on. And that's just because you I commend you, because you just laid out all the information in front of your son and said, here, you pick. Here's what here's what everybody says is going on. And of course, you can go out and find everything else you'd like to research it yourself. You've got access to Google. What do you think?
Yeah.
And his response is that's brilliant. So basically nobody knows what's going on. Yep. And that's why I started my podcast, son.
Yeah. Uh-huh. So.
Oh man, that's incredible. I love it. So let's get into the entrepreneurship real quick. You're an entrepreneur. What is it that you do as an entrepreneur?
Well, I started this business, and then I also do property management stuff I'm a partner in a property management company.
Cool.
And we just started a maintenance company. So I'm really ADHD, and I like to have my hands in 17 different things at one time, or else I don't feel like a whole person. So that's been my entrepreneurial journey. But I did own a salon for 10 years, from like 19 to 29. And then I did real estate, and I have done like securities and life insurance and all of that. Lots of sales. But this is a journey that I like the best so far. Yeah. This whole like social movement that I have going on with Drunk Republic.
For sure. And that's an entrepreneurial journey as well. You said that you're ADHD. And I think, as you said that, I think I need to there's so many entrepreneurs that say that they are, and I've never actually labeled myself that way. There's people that told me, it's like, yeah, you could be. And I think I need to have an expert on the show about that, because I don't know. Because if we weren't the way that we are, maybe ADHD is actually a superpower for an entrepreneur, if that's a real thing, right? So to where we're able to see so many different possibilities at the same time. And we can actually go after 17 different things just to see which one of those 17 is actually going to work, and let the other 16 fail, so that we can actually be successful and just crush it, way beyond anybody else, just because that one thing worked and we had the balls to go after, to even think up 17 things and go after all 17 at the same time.
Yep.
So if I'm ADHD, really great? Bring it on.
I didn't know that I was until I was 20. I think I was 30. And it all made sense after that. I was like, oh, so this over here isn't normal, and most people don't forget these things. And my brain developed ways to make up for certain things. I had, different routines and patterns that I had made up. And then I figured out like, oh, well, wait, my brain is actually processing things different than other people's. The guy that created the Amen clinics, he's rad, and you should probably get him on your podcast if you can. He does brain scans, and he doesn't diagnose anyone without doing a brain scan, which I think is brilliant, because so many people nowadays are misdiagnosed. And I think the big pharma, the big pharma medicine grab is, oh, well, psychotherapy and medical stuff just shouldn't mix. No, it should, if you're going to shove a pill down somebody's throat. So he's really into pinpointing exactly what's causing your ADHD or your bipolar or whatever it is.
It's so closer to functional medicine. It's not attacking the symptoms or the surface level stuff. No. It's actually looking for the root cause. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So That's scans.
Awesome. Yeah. He's brain rad. Scans. Mm-hmm. I love it. This show is ADHD today. We're jumping all around. It's so cool. So what's on your mind right now? What's next on your mind?
No, that's too much pressure.
Oh man. What's on my mind was actually a cinnamon roll. It just kind of popped into my head just now.
See? Exactly. Maybe you need to go. Lord. Maybe you should go get a brain scan.
Maybe I should get a brain scan. That's it. It's interesting though, because we could go off of that, but even with and this relates back to politics too. See, this is coming full circle.
It comes full circle.
It does. A lot of political agendas are very much surface level and special interest, rather than actually looking at the root cause of something. Now, I'm still taking everything into account when I say these things, because there's a lot of weight on these decisions, and there's a lot of complex issues. Some things are just not as simple as they seem. Even coming back to school over the course of the pandemic, there are a lot really of parents that could depend on the public school system to actually be a caretaker for their kids. And I had never really looked at it in this perspective until all of a sudden those kids were just home. And like double income houses where you had to have two incomes to survive, all of a sudden had to figure out some kind of childcare for their kid, or figure out, is just one parent going to work now? Are we going to suffer? Or should the one parent go get a different job or work 2 jobs or 3 jobs because now our kid or kids are home because the schools are shut down? You know, there's complexity to a lot of these things.
There really is. I mean, I think, you know, but we're humans and we adapt. So we were thrown a problem and we just had to figure out a way to deal with it. Like, I was lucky because I worked from home anyways.
Yeah.
But allowing your child to like play video games all day because you have to work isn't really sustainable either. So there was a lot of like, okay, like,
oh, you know,
are you doing your homework? All of a sudden we're teachers and we're trying to work. Like,
yeah, here it is 2 years later, and I'm forgetting because there was so much remote school that took place, you know, over the past couple of years for the public school system. But there was that 2 to 3 month period where there was like literally nothing. Some of the schools just straight up shut down, not teaching any classes whatsoever because they were not ready for something like this.
No, they weren't at all. I remember sitting and listening to my son's teacher. They were just, I mean, God love them. They really tried, but trying to get a bunch of like 3rd and 4th graders to like pay attention is really something.
Yeah, no kidding. So how has your son done in the past couple of years? Because he's 12 right now, right? What are some new concepts that he's become aware of during everything that's shaken down?
I would say that he's just become really aware of like self-responsibility. And I
love that.
And I mean, I'm his mom, so he clearly hears what I talk about all the time. So he just kind of thinks like the world is a little bit fucked, but not in a bad way. Like in a, all right, well, we should probably pay attention to these things. And he kind of sees both sides to everything and reads between the lines really well. So I'm pretty proud of him. He's really brainiac smart in like a on the spectrum sort of way though. So he's always kind of analyzed everything like that.
That's so cool. That's awesome how he's able to take a look at that. There's been talk, of course, because you see the government in the state that it's in right now, and you see the school system in the state that it's in right now. And there's been a lot of concern, obviously, and probably, well, yeah, for good reason, with the generation that's growing up immediately. You know, and the way that I see it, because you're describing your kids, and I know how my kids are. You know, again, they're in private online school. And I even have them involved in things that we're doing right now. My older two, you know, like the podcast, my oldest literally edits the show. You know, he's learned
That's awesome.
Adobe Premiere over the last 2 years, which is what movies are made of. I have made movies in Adobe Premiere that are out there right now. Liberty Lockdown, Cybercrime, they're documentaries. You can find them on Amazon, Vimeo. They're out there, right? Real movies. And he's using the stuff that Hollywood uses. He's learned that at, 13 years old and now almost 15. And my daughter she does the blogs for this show too, the blog posts, which are transcriptions. And so she listens to the whole thing. So they're embedded in what I'm doing.
Yeah, and that's great.
It's an amazing way to instill my beliefs in parenting and how I see the world in my kids, just by them being in and around us. And I think that's something that you got too, is just proximity. You're keeping your dude in proximity to you. Yeah. Rather than shoving him off.
Yeah, he's really interested in gaming and stuff. And so he told me the other day, he's like, Mom, I don't know if I want to go to college. I said, well, then I'm not going to send you to college if you don't know if you want to go. But what do you want to do? And like, you are in a unique position, Braden, because you can actually not ever have to work again if you play the next like 6 years right. So if you're serious and you don't want to go to college and you don't want to be beholden to anyone's schedule, then let's get going on something. So he's thinking of different like podcast ideas right now, and he's learned how to edit videos also. So I think that's really inspiring and awesome
that's
to hear about your kids.
I know, right on. My son, my oldest son, he has even said too, he's like, Dad, I think I want to buy my own house when I'm 18. You know, and this was like 2 years ago when he was 13 or 12. Yeah, I'm like, awesome. I'm like, well, first, there's just one thing I need you to understand. I'm not kicking you out when you're 18. It's like, I just want to make sure the idea is not coming from that. He's like, oh no, that's not what I'm thinking at all. It's like, it's just okay, cool. Because you wonder, it's like, where is this coming? Is it coming from a really good place to where it's like it's like, cool, let's jump on something. Let's rock this, right? Rather than it's like, what kind of bad environment am I creating? I'm sure you've asked yourself that as a parent here and there.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I've wondered that his whole life. His dad and I got divorced when he was 2, but I was like, okay, we either work our marriage out, we're together forever, and we love each other and all the things, because we're not getting divorced when he's 15 or 20, right? Or we just get divorced now and he knows no different. And so his whole life I've been like, did I make the right decision? But then like a year ago, he's like, Mom, I just think it would be so weird if you and Dad lived together. I think I would hate it. Wow. I was like, my job as a parent has been completed.
You had vindication, and we're back to the kids see all, they understand all. For real. And they're really on your side as parents too. It's not. Yeah.
And his dad and I get along great. So there's no like, oh, I couldn't imagine you guys fighting. I was like, no, we get along great. We got divorced and we were like, oh, we'd never have to fight again. Yeah. But yeah, so he just knows both of us and was like, no, I can't imagine it.
Yeah, for sure. So we've jumped around a lot here. We've talked about a lot of things, but I want to send everybody. It's cool that you've been featured on Newsmax multiple times. I've been on their network many a time too, and it just keep going. Drunk politics. How do we find? Do we just search that on?
Yeah. We're on Apple. We're on Spotify. We're on Google Podcasts. Those are the 3 main ones. I think we're on iHeartRadio too now. So you can search us there, and then you can go to drunkrepublic.co, and there's links to everything.
Nice. That's incredible. Krista, this was such a fun conversation and just very real and human. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.